Hello everyone, my name is John Paul Kasse to present this paper under the topic Leveraging COVID-19 Impact, Innovation, Science and Technology Integration for Boosting Resilience of Citrus Fruit Farmers in Teso region of Uganda. I'm presenting this paper on behalf of my colleagues Charles Olport and Sarah Chejusa, and we are all from Makerere University Business School in Uganda. Uganda as a country is underdeveloped, and agriculture is considered to be the backbone of the economy, and it also employs the highest number of people. However, it is defined by a set of characteristics, one being that it's highly labor intensive, and it also takes place in mostly the remote areas of the country where there is limited resources. So the onset of COVID, or even before it happened, agriculture has been prone to a lot of disasters, some of which are natural, like climatic conditions, diseases, and floods. However, the emergence of COVID-19 disrupted the way business is done, and the same happened with agriculture. So our intention, the motivation of our paper, was to assess the impact of COVID-19 pandemic period to citrus fruit farmers and study how these farmers were able to be resilient, to continue in production, and to continue to survive. Therefore, we basically consider the two major factors: one, the farm aspects, and the social well-being of the farmers. To be able to do this study, we were guided by a set of objectives, and this included assessing the impact of COVID-19 to citrus fruit farmers in Teso region of Uganda, and two, to find out how these farmers achieved resilience during this COVID pandemic period, and then to identify and define ways of IST integration in farm aspects and compose a resilience framework to guide and support farmers to achieve socio-economic resilience in the face of current and future adversaries. To be able to do this, we are guided by a methodology that included a quantitative study with a longitudinal design approach. And in this way, we looked at the period between March and August 2020. Why between these periods? Simply because this is the period at which the pandemic was at its peak. And it's within this period that the economy was very low, markets were closed, and everything had been shut down. So we considered this period as the most probable period to study the effects. And then we also employed a stratified sampling method to determine our sample size. And at the end of it all, our sample size composed of 398 respondents. In the survey, we generated results as our outcomes, and they showed that there was an information gap that was created in order to comply. The results revealed that there was an information gap. And this information gap came as a result of the requirement to adhere to the COVID-19 standard operating procedures. And these procedures in Uganda required maintenance of social distancing. And this way, the farmers were highly restricted. They could not go to the markets. They could not go to their farms. And this way, the entire agricultural industry had a limitation of access to services. And therefore, various farm aspects were affected. And these included the farm market, the farm inputs, because the markets were shut down, and therefore the farm inputs were also affected, that farmers could not be able to get the inputs. And then there was farm labor limitations, because the requirement of social distancing restricted farmers from going into the fields. And remember, as I mentioned, that the farming in our country is highly labor intensive. Then there was also a limitation or an effect of the agricultural advisory services. In Uganda, we have got we get advisory services from our extensional staff, the people who move into the different villages or outskirts of the country, providing knowledge to the local farmers. So because of the need to adhere to the SOPs, so they could not move. And therefore there was an impact in that line. And finally, the financial aspect. There was lack of financial support. And this support is required by the farmers because they need the finances to pay off the farmers, buy the inputs, and there was and the fact that the markets were closed, so there was a limitation in terms of the finance. And this as well affected their social economic well-being, because they could not afford to buy their own supplies. They could not meet their own basics. And so because of the impact created, therefore, we also sought to see how other farmers were able to remain resilient. They were able to remain resilient in terms of the farm labor, that they continued to have labor in their gardens or in their farms. And then production resilience, that they continued to produce. And then the market resilience, they continue to have markets. And then the socio-economic resilience, how they were able to continue to survive economically. So building this resilience as our novel idea, as our input, to be able to integrate ISTs into the resilience strategies that the farmers had adopted, we came up with a framework, which we called a resilience framework. And this framework is IST-based. Because these farmers had traditionally developed a set of resilience strategies. So what we thought, that if we integrate IST into these strategies, and then so that would be able to help other farmers to learn from them, and then they can as well be able to curb future adversaries that may come. So the purpose of our resilience framework was, one, to support farmers' recovery from COVID-19 adversaries, and then build resilience for the future adversaries that may come. And then two, to provide guidelines that would support farmers to integrate IST into resilience strategies regarding farm aspects. And therefore, the integration of IST in the recovery strategies during the disasters is intended to support farmers within this region and farmers in other regions who are also non-citrus fruit farmers. And therefore, the integration would include mechanization, that where there's been a limitation of farm labor, that farmers should be able to mechanize their farming activities. And also, because we mentioned that there was a limitation in movement of labor So, by linking farmers, using ICT to link farmers to the community ecosystem, we felt that that would be a way to support the farmers to fight the problem or to overcome the challenge of limited labor. And then the support informed farming and financial decision making by use of technologies. As you may notice that the issue of the mobile phone has changed the way farmers operate, that they can use their mobile phones to be able to access markets, access weather information, and then be able to make their decisions based on the information that is available. And then improved farm service delivery, still by making use of technology and new innovations. The details of our framework have been put into the paper, and for details, please, you are advised or requested to consider the framework within the full paper. And then also finding cheap alternative sources of energy. So through innovations and technology, access to other cheaper sources of energy, for example, adopting the use of solar energy could be an alternative to overcoming such disasters. And then elimination of waste through improved storage facilities. One of the findings showed that some of the farmers had bumpy harvest during this period, but because of lack of markets, that markets could not be accessed, then there was a lot of waste. So many fruits went bad because there was no market. So by integration of technology to improve storage and value addition, that would also help to overcome such disasters. And finally, the use of weather forecast and smart farming would be ideal to overcome these kind of disasters, all enable farmers to build their resistance in the wake of these disasters. In conclusion, we all know or agree that COVID-19 occurred and it's here to stay and created unprecedented effects to humanity. And all we can do is simply to learn how to live with it. And that's how a new term has been coined, that life in the new normal. And then we also agree that farmers faced various challenges as we have highlighted them. And we propose this framework, a resilience framework, that integrates IST into resilience strategies in order to support farmers to recover from adversity or prepare themselves for any future eventualities. As a future outlook, we look forward into validating this framework with the stakeholders in the farming ecosystem. I thank you very much for your attention and also thank our funders from Makerere University under the REEF project. Thank you very much.